I agree with Roger. You know, we're getting him, especially getting older in the church. It is good to see a few younger people can fill in for us and take our place down the road, hopefully. I myself, I can't speak like I used once to. I got to write everything down because my memory's short, so I pretty well read what I've written. So maybe that's just a sign of getting older. I don't know what it is, but be with me today. The title of this sermon here today, I've called it The Christmas Miracle. To me, in life, it's a privilege to be at Christmas. I think especially during this time of life, as we all feel, which we've heard for several years, that we feel the last days are near, but I feel they're getting more nearer all the time with all the things happening throughout the world. But just imagine if Jesus had not come. Perhaps when I woke up this morning, the house was still dark. I woke up in the living room and there was a Christmas tree. This would not have happened if Jesus wouldn't have come. Because of Jesus, you go to the mall, and of course, during this time of year, people are shopping, shoving one another around, trying to get certain gifts. You see all this happening all around. If I was a pastor, I couldn't imagine maybe if I was called to go out and comfort somebody who was in trouble and Jesus would not have come. I would say, well, sir, I'll be right back, right over. I'll bring my Bible, and I open it, and the last book of the Bible is the book of Malachi. There's no New Testament, no promise of the Redeemer or the Messiah, all gone. It would be hard, wouldn't it, to imagine this? Or not only that, but how chaos the world might be. Well, the real story today is the Bible. I'd like for you to turn to Luke 1:30 and 31. It says, "Fear not, Mary, for thou hast found favor with God, and behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb and bring forth a son, and shalt call him Jesus." And here are the details of how this happened in Luke chapter 2. It came to pass in those days, there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed, and this taxing was first made with Cyrus, governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, everyone into his own town. And Joseph also went up to Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and the lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, who was great with child. So it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished, that she should deliver, and should be brought forth the firstborn son, and wrapped in swaddling clothes, and laid in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. So again, we ask the question, where was Jesus born? Was he born in a barn or a manger? We all know that a lot of animals are born in barns. Would this lead us to conclude that Jesus was an animal? Well, we know he wasn't. He was a lamb, the Lamb of God. And where are lambs born? Well, not at a veterinarian clinic. They're usually born outdoors in the pasture. But once in a while, a lamb is fortunate enough to be born in a stable. And that's what happened to Jesus. A barn is a perfect place for a little lamb to come to a cruel, cold world. Privileged lambs are born inside. Jesus was born in a cruel world. Why do I call it cruel? Well, for every lamb that is born, which is the future of that lamb, why is that lamb born? That he might eventually be sacrificed and consumed. So there are two primary things that make a lamb valuable to a farmer. One is his wool, one is his body. The wool is a free byproduct of the growing of the lamb into a sheep while it's growing towards slaughter. Jesus is valuable to us because of his covering. In fact, the robe of pure, perfect righteousness that covers is available free to us. To obtain it, you must come to the Lamb, and you must take it. Way back when Adam and Eve sinned, what did God immediately do? Well, we know he killed the lamb, sacrificed for their sin. Abraham took Isaac. He said God will provide what? He provided a lamb for him. In Egypt, the Israelites put the blood of what? a lamb on the doorpost, and nobody was killed in that house. Isaiah 53:7 predicts that the Messiah would be led like a lamb to the slaughter. John the Baptist said, "Behold the Lamb of God, which takes away the sins of the world." Revelation 5:12 says, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain." The Lamb goes from Genesis to Revelation. That's Jesus. Lamb, the wool of the Lamb, his righteousness will cover our sins. His righteousness covers us means that he is our substitute. And number two, Jesus is not just valuable to us because of his covering, but he is valuable to us because of his body and his blood. It is by his sacrifice that we are saved today. This lamb was born in a manger to die. No wonder the little baby Jesus was so pretty. He was wrapped in a straw as our first Christmas present. Really, the only true valuable Christmas present any of us have ever been given. He was born for us. Isaiah 9:6 says, "For unto us a child is born." Isaiah 7:14 says that you will call him Emmanuel, because he will save his people from their sins. Emmanuel means God with us, and Jesus was God from the first day. From day number one, he was God in the manger, as we all know. He was born in our world to be one with us, and they could not afford a big motel back then. The 5-star Bethlehem resort was not for Jesus. Jesus was born in a 1-star hotel. The wise men saw that star clear from the eastern lands and came. So there were kings there from the east, Einsteins from the east, and there were also shepherds from the town. So you have the humble and the elite who were there to attend to his birth. That 1-star hotel was a group of angels. Jesus was born in a donkey motel. And as I've done in the past, I always throw a little story in to go with it. This was a pastor's story. He says, "I remember being born in a poor family and a small boy back in Indiana. My sister and I, my mother and dad, lived in Hartford City, and the 4 of us in a 700 square foot house. When the wind blew, it was kind of fun to watch the linoleum on the floor rise up and down. I mean, some of you still remember linoleum, them old rugs, how they brittle and break so easy. You knew how windy it was by watching the floor. For many years, the siding on the house was tar paper. My allowance was 10 cents a week. It did my work. My job was to mow our 1 acre of land and to attend some of the 100 plus minus chickens that we had, which means feeding them, watering them, and cleaning their pens. And it means also washing the eggs, putting them upside down. You could call that right side up, but the only way for an egg to be in a carton, that's the only way for an egg to be in a carton, so it worked. He said his dad worked. He worked in a laundry downtown, and I noticed patches on his pants. One day, I don't know why, I noticed that the patches were torn, touching each other, and I thought, oh my poor daddy. So the next time we went to a square around the courthouse, we went into Montgomery Wards. You remember old Montgomery Wards, I imagine. And I went to the men's clothing section. There was a really nice work outfit for almost $4. I thought, how long will it take me to save up $4? I started saving. I saved in a little metal bank. And before Christmas, I had saved up enough to buy that pair of pants. With Mother's help, I wrapped them up for Christmas, and I washed on Christmas morning my daddy's face as he opened the package. I never saw my daddy cry, but his eyes were full of water. He hugged me with his strong arms, and what a day that was. It is the Christmas that I'd never forget. And I'm sure you throughout your life have had a Christmas that you'll never forget. Something, miracle happened that day or something. Well, I hope that Christmas means a lot to you. The Eastern wise men came, the shepherd came, everybody was there. Matthew 2:2 says, the wise men made a statement which is full of meaning. It says, where's the one who has been born King of the Jews? Do you realize that when Jesus was born, he was already a king? The day he was born, he was a king. If you look at the circumstances of Jesus' birth, you will find very few indications of royalty. He was born in a barn. He was born to parents who didn't have any money. They could just barely pay their taxes. He didn't have a throne. He didn't have a scepter. He didn't have a crown. He didn't have a royal robe. He didn't have any armory. He lacked everything that an earthly monarch possesses. But let me assure you, Jesus was not a king because of what he had, but because of who he was. You are a child of the owner of the universe, not because of what you have, but because of who you know. Who are you born to? If you don't know Jesus, you're lost. If you do, you're a child of the King. So if you're not saved because of what you have, you're saved because of who you have, because of relationship to Jesus. I thought when Jesus was born, he probably was not the only baby in the town that night. There were probably other babies in the town also. Most towns have births as they come right along. Notice how carefully the angels described the baby so the shepherds would not have to guess as to what the baby was or where he was. The signs are very specified, identified the true Christ child. Since Satan usually counterfeits all the major working of God, Satan has a counterfeit for the Sabbath. We all know that. He had a counterfeit for everything. Satan is going to impersonate the second coming of Christ. Why wouldn't he impersonate the first coming of Christ? I think he would. Maybe he'd even tried to pull off that one. In the last days, only the very elect would not be fooled, and those humbled shepherds were not fooled. They were actually wise men. They found that correct baby as they worshiped the Christ child. Over in Luke 2, it seems logic that Satan could have impersonated the first coming. What was those critical signs? Luke 2:12. It says, "There will be a sign to you. Here's a sign. You will find a baby wrapped in clothes, swaddling clothes, laying in a manger." Now why would a baby wrapped in clothes be a sign? Well, almost every baby you see in cloth diapers or in cloth baby blankets. Here's how I see it. In the Bible days, when you left on a long trip, you prepare for the worst. Sickness, accidents might happen. You don't know. It brought death to many travelers because there were bandits in those days, and you don't have police forces like you have today. But in those days, you were pretty well on your own. So how do you deal with it journey death? Well, the body could not continue to be transported. A dead body, you know what happens. So you have to deal with it. You have to deal with it then and there. Archaeologists and historian evidence suggest that swaddling clothes were widely practiced in Jesus' day. Travelers often took thin, lightweight clothes with them. It was a cloth that was reserved for death, and if somebody died during the journey, their friends would just simply wrap them up and dispose of the body. The baby Jesus was probably wrapped in Joseph's death clothes. That's what I took of this. Maybe it was all that they had. So the sign for the shepherd wasn't that they would find a baby wrapped in a blanket, but they would find a baby prepared for death. We all know Jesus came to die. In fact, the wise men, and there have been more than 3. The Bible never tells us how many. The wise men brought gifts of gold and frankincense, and what? Myrrh. What was myrrh used for? It was an embalming spice used for death. We all know Jesus came to die. Well, Jesus did die for you that you might be saved from Adam's curse of eternal death. As a baby, he was there to die. Another very specified sign was that the baby would be found in a manger. This is very unusual also. This little detail is mentioned twice in the Bible in Luke 2:7 and Luke 2:12. Jesus was a very poor baby in a manger, mingled manger, but eventually that little baby, the manger baby, overthrew the largest empire in the world, the kingdom of Satan. He overthrew it. It was doomed by the manger baby. So to see a baby born in Bethlehem would be a very specified sign that there was a Messiah. Meanwhile, back in Jesus' day, there in Bethlehem, the city was humming, business was doing good. The merchants weren't aware that God had visited their town. The innkeeper could not believe that he had just sent God out into cold. Oh, the question is, why did God announce the birth to the shepherds? Why did he announce this to the Pharisees, the leaders, and the chief priests? Well, we all know that God goes to those who have time for him. He goes to those who have room for him in their heart. So on that cloudless night, he went to the simple herders of sheep, and he gave this world a Christmas miracle. I've asked you before, have you ever experienced a Christmas miracle in your life? And I'm sure each and every one of you have. Because I'd like to submit to you that the manger today in your heart is a foul place. It stinks. It's not good. It is the human heart that's good. No, but Jesus is good, and Jesus wants to come into your heart and change your heart and to be your king. I got another story here, goes by another miracle. This was told to a pastor by a woman in the church one day. Her name was Ina Jean. It's a true story of a Christmas miracle that happened to her. It happened in 1940, December the 24th, in New Mexico. They were out living in the country, and there was quite a number of family people there, and they wanted to do some last-minute Christmas shopping. So some of the family members took one and only car and drove into El Paso, which was several miles away, to do some Christmas shopping. All of a sudden, there was a screaming. Imogene heard somebody screaming, and lo and behold, little 6-year-old Austin had fallen into the stock tank. How long he had been there, she said, I don't know. He looked blue. He looked dead when they got to him. He was drowned. The mother pulled the drowned boy out, and they started rolling him over, which is what you did back in those days. Water was coming out, but he was still dead. Finally, Imogene's husband ran down the driveway out to the highway, which was in front of their place, way down there. He went to flag down a car to see if they could get some help. Maybe they could take the boy into town. Maybe they could help him. And this road was long, and it was very seldom ever a car on this road. Well, finally, a long car appeared over the horizon. He frankly waved his arms as the car got closer, stood right in the middle of the road. You've got to help us. The car stopped, and the driver just happened to be Dr. George Schwartz, who was driving from Hayward, California. He was a doctor. He rushed the boy to the boy's side. The boy had swallowed his tongue. The doctor knew what to do. In just a very short time, that boy started breathing again and lived out a normal boyhood life, saved by the one and only car that just happened to come along at that instant. To me, that's a miracle, but I know people would say that was just coincidental, but I know it's an answer from God. So again, do you have a miracle in your life? At Christmas time, it seems to be the biggest and most important thing. It's not the present under the tree with your name on it. It's not. The biggest thing to me, I view the Christmas tree as a symbol of the cross. Now, you might not, but the cross held Jesus, the light of the world, on itself. That's what the cross did. And that Christmas tree holds up all those lights. But lights remind me of Jesus because Jesus is the light of the world. But the question is Jesus today the light of the world for you? If he is, then you should be lit up. I know it's a pretty short one, but I got a bad habit of talking too fast. But so, in summing all this up, I'd just like to say, we're living in a very dark days of our lives. As you see all the things happening over in Israel with Hamas and what's going on between Russia and over there. And what's happening in our own country, we see all the things happen. I won't mention them because it's been recorded, but we know all the things that's going on in our own country. That's the Bible's against. It's not a man and woman no more and stuff like that. But believe it or not, God's still out there doing miracles. We may not see it, but he's out there. He's been doing it all these years. So don't ever give up. Just keep on. And things will turn around. Pray to God it will. So that's all I have to say. What's our closing song? Better get it.